Yeah, the mic's on. Okay. Hi, I'm Aileen Smith, and I was born very close to here, and I went to Nishimachi International School. Yeah, 50 years ago. Yay. Uh, okay, the foundation of my work life is Minamata victims. They gave me the foundation. I photographed Minamata disease victims in Kumamoto when I was 21. I lived there for 3 years with my first husband. Minamata disease is methylmercury poisoning from pollution, chemical plant in Kumamoto. And what the victims taught me has laid my foundation. They were fighting for their compensation, and they won a lawsuit that nobody thought they could win. The victims and their supporters taught me two really important things. One is that if people come together, all sorts of different kinds of people, and work together, sometimes you can have justice in this world. And the neat thing about it is that they didn't tell me this, they showed it to me. And so inside me is like there's this bonfire. And no matter how many failures I see, and times when there isn't justice, that feeling, that fire inside me can never be stamped out. And that's what they gave me. The other thing they gave me is that they taught me that if you look at something from the viewpoint of the victims, you can understand the issue much more deeply. And this goes for anything. If you look at it from the people who are getting the raw deal out of whatever that issue is, you can understand that issue and start seeing it in amazing ways. Okay, fast forward 10 years. I first heard about nuclear power and getting more involved in nuclear power when I went with my second husband, change husbands, change themes, to 3 Mile Island. This is in Pennsylvania. It was the first serious nuclear power plant accident from commercial nuclear power. And the people there, we interviewed them for a year about their experiences during and after the accident. And what they taught me two things. One is that up until the day of the accident, there were pro-nuclear people and anti-nuclear people. But the day of the accident, there was no such thing. There were just people looking for their loved ones and throwing everything precious that they found in their homes and throwing it in their car and fleeing, never thinking that they could come back. Then they taught me another thing, and that was that when we said that we lived in Kyoto, they said, there's so many nuclear power plants around there. Japan is earthquake prone. Don't go back there. Stay around 3 Mile Island because it's so much safer here. Anyway, flash forward another 30 years. I'm still working on nuclear power. March 11th happens. The moment it happened, I heard about the earthquake and the tsunami, and then the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident starting. What happened to me was I saw a whole 30 years pass by in front of me. Every step of the way was leading closer to the day, March 11th. I saw that happening, and in a nutshell, it was lack of democracy, lack of people who are stakeholders who should have the right to speak, not being able to speak, twisting facts, and just bulldozing through with power. And that's how March 11th happened. It was like a truck coming at us for years and years, and you can see it approaching. You want to stop it, you try to do it, but you can't. And to be honest, I felt that day, unfortunately, I felt we couldn't have done better. We tried our best. It's just that there were too few people. So I want to talk about Fukushima and nuclear power. With Fukushima, how should we think about it? Well, the way I think about it is I think about it from the perspective of the people who are going to be affected the most. And these are the children living in Fukushima, 300,000 children. 75% of those children live in what would be called radiation-restricted areas. If it were a nuclear power plant, individuals under 18 will legally not be allowed in there. And when they do work there, they're monitored very carefully. These children, there's no evacuation in Japan unless it's over 20 millisieverts a year exposure. So remember the number 20. What about other countries? Well, in the Soviet Union, when the Chernobyl accident happened in 1986, evacuation happened at 5, as compared to 20 in Japan right now. Also, people in Chernobyl around there had the right to evacuate. That means they got compensation if they decided and elected to evacuate if the contamination was between 1 and 5. What about in Japan? Well, nuclear power plant workers have a right to seek compensation for their illness, like cancer and leukemia, if they've been exposed to 5 millisieverts a year or more. That's 5. Babies right now, children, are exposed to 20, can be exposed up to 20 in Fukushima. Something amazing happened on August 17th this year. Many children wrote to the Japanese government. These are Fukushima children. They're handwritten letters, and they got delivered by 4 individuals, 2 junior high school girls and 2 boys in elementary school. They met the Japanese government that day in Tokyo. The room was absolutely filled. It was a huge room, and there were 200 people there, adults, and there were reams of cameras and media. And there was a whole line of bureaucrats, really long line. People from Nuclear Safety Commission, people from Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, these are all bureaucrats, and also officials from the safety agency, the Emergency Management, Disaster Management Safety Agency. And these 4 confronted the government for an hour. They demanded the protection of Fukushima children. They said that there should be a right to evacuate for the families of these children, so that they have compensation so they can evacuate, and they demanded Fukushima to be cleaned up. And the government didn't answer their questions. And right afterwards, at a press conference that they held, they said they were so frustrated because they asked specific questions, but the government didn't answer them. But they were also, they said, frustrated themselves because when they asked the questions the government didn't answer, they somehow could not ask in a different way so the government would answer. And they said they learned from that day, and they're going to do better the next time. So I want to talk about nuclear power in Japan. Something amazing has happened right now, and that is because of the tragedy of Fukushima, we have 54 nuclear power plants in Japan, but there are only 11 operating right now. And every single one of those is going to be shut down by May of next year because of annual inspections. That means that in May of next year, there will be no nuclear power plants operating in Japan if none of the ones that are shut right now are restarted. The Fukushima accident is not over. We still do not understand it. It looks like the earthquake would have caused damage in some of the reactors. And we know that Fukushima cannot be prevented again with other nuclear power plants in Japan. So the fight is on to keep those from restarting. Nuclear power, what about nuclear power in Japan? Well, it's been disadvantageous for the consumer and the taxpayer because 88% of subsidies, government subsidies that go to nuclear, go to electricity, to go to nuclear alone. That's all the money goes to nuclear, almost all of it. And also for consumers, over the 40 years that nuclear power has been existing in Japan, it's been the most costliest form of electricity being supplied by electric utilities in Japan. So what about new nuclear power? Well, new nuclear power is, first of all, really bad for dealing with global warming, although it's usually billed as being good for global warming. The reason is nuclear power is so expensive that it diverts money from much better ways of reducing CO2 emissions. Also, nuclear power is so expensive that, for example, in the US, companies that invest in nuclear power, their credit ratings is brought down by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Also, countries that have a lot of nuclear power, they're way behind on renewables and conservation, like France as compared to Denmark. So what am I going to do? Well, first of all, when I get off of the stage tonight, I'm going to write the UN Office of the High Commission for Human Rights again. We demanded in August that the human rights of Fukushima children that were being violated should be inspected, and we asked them to come. But we recently found out that the Japanese government is stonewalling and won't let the UN in to check and inspect and investigate. So I want that to change. We want that to change. And tomorrow I'm going to go around diet offices and try to get this changed. And we're going to work on that. and also try to stop the first restart that's scheduled now near Kyoto in Fukui Prefecture. So what can I give to you today? I don't know, but maybe I can give two things. One is a promise. The promise that not just that I'll keep trying hard, but that those of us who try will be more successful, because we need to deliver and we need change, so that all the terrible stuff that's happening, you'll have to deal with that a little bit less than all that has to be dealt with now. And the other that I would like to convey, and maybe what I can give to you, is to let you know that you're very powerful and you're very necessary. Powerful because you are the ones that are going to be living the future. You are the ones that are going to have to be taking care of a lot of this mess that we've created. In fact, most of it, unfortunately. And so if you speak, what adult, what of our generation that's created this can refute your right to speak up about it and to say it's got to stop and to tell our generation we better get our act together? And the other is that you're really necessary, because your age, you can write, you can express yourselves, you can write letters to the editor or whatever you think should be done. And the 5-year-olds and the babies right now can't do that yet. In other words, you're necessary and needed by the people younger than you. And maybe you are the most powerful advocates for them. Maybe you are the ones that can fight for them the best. I don't mean to let go of my responsibility. I'll work really hard. But I know that you're needed. And maybe that's the little gift. I'm just telling you you're really needed and that you're really powerful. Thank you very much.